thanks for joining us here today at Cakes, Cooking and More. I'm Marie Lockwood. Today's recipe is homemade enchiladas with Spanish rice and refried beans. So let's see what we need. Okay, so for this recipe we actually need quite a few things. We have some cumins, pepper, salt, chili powder, some onions, some corn tortillas, hamburger meat, cheddar, some tomato sauce, some rotel, some enchilada sauce, and some refried beans. So the first thing that we're going to do is get our hamburger meat cooked and well drained. So we're just going to get this started and then we'll be back. Okay, now that our hamburger is well cooked and well drained, we're going to start adding our spices. So first we have a little bit of salt, and a little bit of pepper, our cumin, and our chili powder. We're also going to add our tomato sauce. Alright, so what we're going to do is just get this well stirred. Make sure that flavor is all over all of the meat, well incorporated. It should slightly resemble sloppy joe meat at this point. You're just going to give it a minute to bring the heat back up. That tomato sauce will cool it way down. So you just want to give about 1 to 2 minutes with the heat on until it's heated well, and then we'll be back. Okay, you can see it's sizzling, it's bubbling, it's good and heated. Alright, so we're going to move this to the side for a minute while we get the rest of our stuff prepared. Okay, now we have everything ready. We're going to get started on putting our enchiladas together. You're going to take your corn tortillas and dip those in your enchilada sauce. Be prepared, this gets extremely messy. I'm going to lay it down, taking a spoon, take a little bit of your meat mixture, and you can put as little or as much in there as you want. I don't put a whole lot because I want it to stretch and make more enchiladas so that everybody gets some. Then I sprinkle a little bit of onion on there. I like onion in my enchiladas. One of the children likes onion in their enchiladas. So I actually make one batch with and one batch without, but that's totally up to you. Now you just kind of roll it and slide it to the side, and it usually will stay rolled. Then just do your next one. And you keep going till the end of your pan. A little bit of meat, a little bit of onion, and a little bit of cheese in each one. Now some people do put in jalapenos, or they even substitute with chicken. You can actually do that, although usually with chicken you don't have a red sauce. Now the red sauce that I use is Old El Paso, and it's actually the best one that I've found as far as a canned version. And I have never quite gotten one that I make myself to come out just right. It always comes out too thick. This one is a very thin one that works perfect for dipping your enchiladas in. But if you're okay with it and you find a great recipe, I'd love to hear about it. So like I said, you just keep finishing until the pan is full. Alright, now that we're at the end of our pan, you can see they're tucked in pretty good, and we have a little gap. So what I do is I just lay it on top and fill it in like I have been. then I roll it and I tuck it down into the side. This pan will fit 2. This is a smaller pan, but with only 2 of us eating the ones with onion, I do a smaller pan of them. Plus it won't do 2 large pans of enchiladas. It'll do 1 big one, 1 little one. Like I said, this is a very messy one, and your hands are going to be just completely covered. Alright, now that I've gotten to the end, what I am going to do is take my onion, just sprinkle it on top, however much or as little as you want. Like I said, I like the onion, so I put it heavy on mine, but I know some people don't. Alright, then you're going to take a large amount of cheese and sprinkle that on top. Now everything is actually cooked except for the tortilla. So really we're not putting it in the oven to cook it. We're putting it in the oven to get it well heated and to get the cheese completely melted that's on top. You just kind of have to shake your hands there, guys. Alright, now that you've done that, we are going to set this aside and fill our second pan, and then we'll be back. Okay, now that both of our pans are full, and I don't know if you can see in the large pan I was able to get 2 on each side. This is a little bit bigger. I'm going to take a large soup ladle, and I'm going to take the sauce that we didn't use, and I'll pour a little bit all over the top of them, and just give them some extra flavor when they cook. Now you don't want to use all of your sauce, and that's why I'm not just pouring it on top. You need a little bit for some other stuff. You can't have a meal with just enchiladas. You got to have sides. Okay, once I've got those fairly well covered, about what I want. Okay, we're going to put these in the oven at 350 for about 15 to 20 minutes. You're just, like I said, looking for the cheese to melt. When you look in and all of the cheese is melted on top, you're good to go. So while this is in the oven, we will start on our next item. Okay, so for this part, we have a packaged Spanish rice, and you know, you can do it, like I said, by yourself if you want from scratch. I don't do it because it comes out too spicy. The kids can't eat it. It takes a really long time. And this is just so much easier, and I can just add a few things and make it taste really well. So what this requires is that I add it to water with a little bit of oil. So I've already got that in there. Then I'm just going to add a few spoonfuls of Rotel. Mine has green chilies in it. And you kind of drain that off. You don't want the oil from it, or water, or whatever it's stored in. But you want a couple of spoonfuls. Comes to probably about half of the can is about what I use. Alright, now that that's in there, I'm going to take a little bit of my hot sauce here. And I only want about half a ladle full. And I'm just going to add that. Now other than that, we're going to cook it exactly per directions. And we'll be back in a few when it starts to boil and get ready. Okay, so our 7 minutes is up. I'm just going to turn the heat off. You can see that it's thickened up quite a bit. And the Rotel is in there, and the sauce, so that helps it quite a bit with the taste. Straight out of the bag isn't as great, but you can spice it up and make it usable. Alright, so we're going to set this aside, and then we're going to start on our refried beans. Okay, so this is a can of refried beans. Again, when they come out of the can, because they're store-bought, they're very plain. However, cooking our pinto beans in a crock pot overnight and then smashing them and then frying them takes a really long time. So what I do is I use the can and I spice it until it tastes good. Sometimes store-bought is just easier and more time efficient. So let's face it, we all have busy lives, and I just don't have 15 hours to spend on refried beans. So I do this. Alright, so at this point, we're going to turn our heat on, and you don't need it very high. Now I use a little bit extra chili powder and cumin, and you really want to spice that to taste. If you put too much, it will be very gritty, so be careful of that. If you don't put enough, it will be very plain and have almost no flavor. So you really want to test that and find what works for you. Now on the website, the link will be in the description box, I will put in the amount that I use, but you probably want to start with half of that and make sure that you like it before you do it. Now I'm going to use the last of the Rotel, but this time I'm also going to use a little bit of the juice. And I don't use all of the juice because then it just comes out really, really wet and you have to cook it a lot longer. Okay, once the Rotel is in, I take the last of the enchilada sauce, and you can see it's not a lot. It's a very small amount, but it really, really makes a difference on the flavor. So that's why I always save just a little bit of the sauce for the rice and the beans. Now some people don't like to do that. It makes the beans a little bit spicy, and they can't eat it. But even my 7-year-old will eat this without complaining about the spice. In fact, this is the 7-year-old and the 10-year-old's favorite meal. Now I do on the enchilada sauce buy mild, and that makes a big difference. So if you're buying it and you have little kids or you don't like a lot of spice, go with the mild one. Now if they're not here and it's just me and Jeff, I go with the really spicy one. Jeff and I like spice, but the kids just can't handle that. Alright, so what we're going to do is just make sure that you stir this really well. Get all of those ingredients mixed in. You want every bite of the beans to have good flavor. You don't want some really plain and some great or overspiced, because like I said, if you put too much of the cumin and the chili powder, it will come out really gritty. Those are powdered items. So you really have to watch that. So the amount that I put in is the same whether the kids are here or not, because it's right before it hits gritty and add a good taste. But then like I said, I like a little more spice. If you don't like that, tone it down a little bit. Alright, so you're just going to smooth this out, and you're just going to heat this until it's nice and warm. And it really only takes, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes. And I just have it on a very low setting, a simmer setting. So you really don't have to turn it up too high. And you really, like I said, you're just reheating it. It's already been cooked. You're spicing it to a good taste, and then you're heating it up, and that is it. Okay, so we'll be back in a few minutes once this is heated up. Okay, you can see that it's bubbling pretty good, and it will do that. Just give it a good stir whenever it starts to bubble. You don't want it to splash, and you don't want it to burn and stick to the bottom. Now I'm using ceramic, so that doesn't really happen with this, but you know, you still want to make sure that you just stir it. And really, you're heating for a few minutes to draw out some of that moisture that we added. Refried beans are not supposed to be soup-like. So like I said, just give it a stir if it starts to bubble, and just keep heating it for your 5 minutes. By then it should thicken up quite a bit, and it'll be nice and warm. And then we'll be back. Okay, now that all of our elements are done, we're going to plate it. So I'm going to take out 2 enchiladas, and sometimes they fall apart, guys, so be prepared. It's not anything that you've done wrong. It just happens. So we have some enchiladas. Give our rice a little stir. Some Spanish rice. And then we have a little bit of our refried beans. This is one meal that most of your family is sure to enjoy. My family actually requests it about once a month, which is way more than I can handle eating it, but it's very good. So I hope that you enjoyed our show today. I'm Marie Lockwood. Thanks for joining us here at Cakes, Cooking, and More. Have a great day.